Hey everybody, welcome back to Tavern Talks. This is episode 146, and tonight we have a new guest, a special guest and good friend of mine, Brandon Perkins, who is an amazing author, writer, player, and game master. But I'm going to stop talking really fast and let him kind of give a quick, just inspirational message real fast while we start. Let's go with that. So,
Inspirational message. I can
yes.
do that. Don't do drugs. Stay in school. Uh,
No,
always vote with your heart. Um,
no.
I said
Elevator
it's
speech is the best way to
questionable.
put it.
Okay, elevator pitch. Yeah, I'm Brandon Perkins, also known as DM_Brando. You can find me on various socials, but not all the socials, but various socials, namely Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. I as mentioned, do writing. I've written two TTRPG systems with Rob Mulligan called thedeep.com, and Avoid All Land at avoidallland.com. Um, the quick start for the Deep is about to be launched very, very soon. We are working with Modifius on that one. We've licensed the 2D20 system to be able to uh, use with this system, and Modifius has been awesome. I highly recommend looking at their catalog. They've got some incredible, amazing, good stuff. And yeah, I'm also a TTRPG player, GM, and a DM. But I guess I could just say GM.
Sounds good.
With Realmsmith and Cybernation Uncensored.
That's awesome.
But yeah, in a nutshell, that's a bunch of stuff in a nutshell.
Hey, no worries. And that, like I said, for us, it's really cool to have you because not only can you give us a perspective of game mastering on the D&D side of things, but on other systems, which is really something we've looked forward to this year. So I'm going to kind of kick it off. I like to ask my game masters three questions, and it kind of just gives me an idea of where you're coming from. The first one is when did you get into TTRPGs?
It's hard to say because the first time I played D&D specifically was probably 10 to 12 years ago. But I've been playing TTRPGs in some sense of the word as far as like theater of the mind RPGs, what do you do, kind of thing since I was a kid, maybe like 8 years old.
Awesome.
Um, and that's because one of my friends
Oh,
played D&D, didn't remember anything about it, and then told me about it and was like, let's play. And we had none of those source books. We had like nothing but theater of the mind and storytelling, and we just did that. We didn't even have dice. It was just like a what do you do and then describe what you do situation. And that's where it started for me.
I had a very similar experience, so that's why I love to ask that question because I do feel people in this realm, especially ones people who are older, have had that experience, but they just didn't have the books. So we
Yeah.
figured out other ways to do it. I did collaborative writing for years as a child, and that was kind of with the same, very similar mentality. Um,
Sure.
but so once you were able to get a hold of a book, and I'm wondering if Dungeons and Dragons was your first TTRPG that you actually started playing, where dice were involved and you actually had a system there, or if it was a different one. What was the spark that kind of caught you to be like, I need this in my life, or rather, this is something that's very beneficial for me?
Uh, well, it took a while for me to get into it. But my first system was 5e. And I always avoided it because my parents were like satanic panic to the nth degree, right?
Hey, that
So
was me.
yeah, all right. We
We
got that in
see
common.
that more common than we think.
Yeah. Well, like, they kept telling me these stories like, oh, there was this kid that killed some other kid so he could level up in D&D. And then I start playing D&D and D and realize, well, that doesn't even make sense. I don't get it. But there's that one episode of Luther with that guy that would roll dice. I don't know if you've ever seen Luther, but he'd roll dice to determine his decision-making processes, and he was like a murderer. That was a
Oh,
cool episode.
that was a cool episode.
But it was a cool episode, but it's I don't know. That's the closest thing I can think of to, any potential real world murders related to D&D.
Yeah.
But that I took you off on a weird tangent
Oh no,
there.
you're good.
Yeah.
One thing. So going back to the original question is, what was something that caught your interest or like it sparked you to continue to play?
Yeah, well, it's great to sit around the table with friends and be able to explore these worlds and explore each other's imaginations. Um, One thing I learned about D&D is it's as evil and as creative and as good and as amazing as somebody's imagination. And the person that's running the game, it's very much them that they're putting on the table. So we all take a piece of ourselves and add to that.
Hmm.
And that's something that is a beautiful part of the experience. It is collaborative storytelling, yes, led by one person or sometimes two. Um, but we all get to take part in putting ourselves on the table. Every one of my characters has a bit of me in it, and I think that's true of everybody.
Hmm.
Even if you're trying to make something that's not you, you're going to end up on the table in some way.
Yeah, and I think the people that have that opportunity to use those types of skills where they can pull so much out of somebody else, like you said, there's still going to be something that bleeds out. You know, it's something that just feels like it's you, or maybe a very small portion of you that you've never been able to, deal with or explore those types of things. Um, so my final question for the beginning, because this is always the way to warm people up for this stuff, is when did you decide instead of being on one side of the table, you were ready to step behind the screen to take on the mantle of game master?
When I was a kid, my friend introduced me to the collaborative storytelling of whatever whatever it was. He said he called the game Ruin. Um, but I immediately took that and I ran with it. So
Oh,
whenever
okay.
I'd be babysitting kids or something like that, I would like their bedtime story would be a, a collaborative experience, you know? It was not the best way to get kids to settle down and go to sleep, I learned, because they get really excited and they're getting their character and they're like, oh, the story's over now. And it's like, yeah, yeah, you got to sleep now. But we're so excited, you know? Um, I fell in love with that part of the storytelling. I love to write. I love to come up with stories. I love to make up characters and breathe life into things. And this is one of the purest expressions of that.
I can definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
Um, Chuck, you got anything? Kind of
Yeah, not
start
at the
us
moment.
off.
Jeez. Um, Put me on the spot. I'm just listening,
Absolutely.
just enjoying my time. Okay. I guess I'll just reach in the basket that I know. So, as a GM, what kind of tips and tricks have you kind of taken away as far as trying to keep your players engaged in your games?
It's a great question. I think, I did a lot of improv and acting in high school, and that comes into this a lot.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I've said for years is remember always yes and or no but. Um, and there are DMs out there that disagree with that because they say, oh, you shouldn't say yes and to everything, and no but, still leaves the door open, and sometimes it has to be just a straight no. Um, but I don't think so. Uh, so I think that's sorry, I'm again going away from the original question.
That's fine.
That's the wonders of this show is you can go as far
Yeah,
away from this question as you want. We're
I'll
just
yeah,
bring you
here.
back in if I need to.
We're here. We're just here for the ride.
yeah, sure. Good. Just remind me the original question before I go off on another tangent.
No, it's just what
Yeah.
kind of tips have you come across just keeping your players engaged in your games?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I learned a lot from Jason as well. Jason Azevedo of Realm Smith. He was huge into engagement and investment, and so he would bring scented candles to the table, Sirenscape, all of the toys and tricks and every sense was a part of the experience. You know, you've got the
Mm,
minis, you've got the terrain, you've got everything's just beautifully painted because I mean he's just a master when it comes to painting minis. I don't even know how he gets the eyes to not look in different directions,
little cross-eyed, yeah.
but yeah, he's got it. He's amazing. Um, so I learned a lot from him as well, and also from Rob Mulligan, who um, he often brings to the table situations that he has no way out of, and the players will find their own way,
Interesting.
Yep.
right? And he, like, if they get caught or something like that, he's got his fallbacks. He knows what he's going to do if they don't get out of the situation. It usually involves being naked in the bathtub, tied up with all your stuff somewhere else.
Sounds
But again,
cyberpunk,
he
yeah.
runs usually cyberpunk, and
Yep.
so
What has been
yeah,
removed from your body in order to get out of this situation?
exactly. You know, I had two kidneys a second ago. I've got one now. So um, I'd say borrowing from the DMs that you know and bringing that your own spin, your own flavor. That's a great way to keep your players invested. Keeping it fresh that way. Because this is an amazing community that we're a part of, and we learn from each other all the time. And watching other DMs and GMs, you pick up some sense of skills from them, like uh, Brennan Lee Mulligan. Of course, there's so many different people that you can take from, and they often willingly say, "Yes, borrow this to learn from me," because that is the community. We're all very giving and creative, and I think that as long as we're all um, getting better at this craft, uh, then everybody's happy, right? We're all here to have fun.
Absolutely.
So. A long roundabout way to answer your question, but there you go.
No, I mean that's perfect. I mean, really, it is take what you know from your other GMs because you're going to find something
Yeah.
new every time you're with them.
Yep.
It's
And just
it's good,
being, by virtue of you being yourself, you're going to add a spin to it.
right? No, that's a good point too. Whatever trick you have, you're always going to make it your own in some small way.
No, I
Um,
like that.
yeah. Well, so you mentioned you started D&D later in life.
Yeah.
You've played other systems. What has there been one that you've just kind of just gravitated towards like this is where I'm most comfortable. This is one I like all these games, but this is the one I really feel good with.
Other than D&D 5e 2014 edition,
Hmm.
I'm very much with the 2014 rules. It's not easy for me to learn a new system, so it says a lot when I'm able to like to actually do that. Um, other than D&D, I love Cyberpunk Red. It's so balanced, so beautiful. And even if you play with light rules, it's just a ton of fun. I've never run it, so I can't speak to that side of it. But as a player, the leveling system is just chef's kiss. I love it so much. It works like at the end of every session you get some improvement points, and you can spend them at any point, before the next session on all kinds of different things like improving your character and multi-classing and things like that. It's not going up a level.
Hmm.
You're just saying, you know what, my handguns could be better, and I have enough points to be able to bump that up. Let's do that. Or like one of my friends in the Sirenscape cyberpunk game, we did or she did what was it? I think it was pickpocketing just for fun, just because she wanted to be able to like sneak muffins into people's pockets.
Perfect.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Other than
Bad muffins too, I'm
Cyberpunk
sure.
Red. Sorry about that. Sorry, what were you saying?
Bad muffins, I'm sure.
That yeah, because it's Cyberpunk. The
Yeah, exactly.
muffins are
They're
only
not
so
great.
fresh. They're made of kelp or
Oh,
something. Um, Fallout or yeah, Modifius' Fallout game is also very good. Very fun to run. Very fun to play. You can be a super mutant. You can be a Mr. Handy. There's, you could be a ghoul. It's it really allows you to run with your imagination. And if you're a fan of Fallout at all, I highly recommend giving it a look. It's an easy system to learn.
Yeah, we were talking off stream about this, but the 2D20 system really seems like it's a pretty easy system to pick up and go with.
Oh yeah,
So, um,
oh yeah. Essentially, low rolls are good.
oh, okay.
oh, that's perfect for me.
There's a couple different games like that at this point, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can deal with that. Um,
Those are perfect.
well, for a lot of people, yeah, because most people roll low anyways, so
Yeah,
it
me.
helps. Yeah, so kind of pulling it back a little bit and going through some of the different talents that you have. Um, what type of genre do you write?
Right now, I'm very focused on the deep, but we've also written Avoid All Lands. The deep is dark horror,
Ooh.
deep, deep dark horror, body horror. It's a cross between Stranger Things and Silent Hill, diving into dark alternate worlds um, that force you to atone for your sins. They know, like the world itself knows your sins and will confront you with them. And if you don't overcome them, they will kill you. So that's what the deep is very much about. Um,
I like this.
yeah.
I was like, we've had our experience in a couple of different games over the last couple months, and there's something about cosmic and eldritch horror and deep horror. Like I'm just like, ooh,
I love it.
starting
Yeah.
to find
Love those worlds.
my world
Yeah.
that I shouldn't know.
It's
Give me some
it's
Eldritch
spooky.
horror. I love it.
We've got some beautiful art for the main book when it releases. I think the art itself would be a reason to buy the book. It's
I'm
just
sold.
to have it on your coffee table and scare the hell out of people. Uh,
Ooh.
and Avoid All Land is post-apocalyptic, and it's basically 1,000 years after the collapse of humanity. A pathogen has spread on land, and it is no longer safe to be on land. Humanity has to survive on the oceans, and
Oh,
Waterworld.
it's yeah, very much like a Waterworld kind of scenario. Yeah.
interesting.
Um, so
Did we grow?
in
We
that
got, we
that
got
way,
gills now.
you can create a character that has mutations. Yeah.
Sweet. We Kevin
Yeah, it's
Costner all day.
exactly. You could be just like Kevin Costner.
So this is interesting for me because that's definitely diving away from the normal 5e high fantasy that most people are familiar with. What what kind of brought you to the interest of going that direction over a high fantasy? Like what really gets you excited about these types of scenarios and these types of genres?
Well, the Deep actually began as a Silent Hill TTRPG.
Oh,
And I was trying to get um, license for it. But it's very, very hard to do with language barriers and that because it's owned by Konami, which is Japanese, and
Ah,
so we were trying to do it through Modifius, who already had somewhat of a relationship with Konami, as far as I know. I won't go into details from there because I don't know what's public knowledge and what's not,
no worries.
but it it turned out that it was such a an onerous process and it would be so time consuming that it was just better to homebrew something, you know? So I took my own theory of Silent Hill being a place that forces you to atone for your sins
Mm,
and turned it into, okay, the deep, this other world forces you to atone for your sins. How
nice.
do we make that into an RPG? And so that's where that one came from.
Oh, cool. Um, and are
Yeah,
these? You said
so
both of
it
these are
was very much
using.
a love of horror.
Oh, so you said both of these are using the 2D20 system?
The Deep is using 2D20. It's a homebrew system for Avoid All Land.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Do we have any questions in the chat yet? No. Let's see. So, somebody who's been game mastering for a while now and who's played a lot over the years, um, what would you say for somebody coming in brand new, building a character? What would you recommend? How would you recommend them doing it to come up with a character concept that actually is going to be fun at the table?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. And I would normally ask them questions, but I'm gonna make some assumptions here and try to make this apply to as many people as possible. So I would say don't get intimidated. Everybody starts somewhere. You don't have to know all the rules. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to know how to play. You don't have to know who your character even is deep down in their heart of hearts. You just have to bring yourself to the table and put forward the best you can. You don't have to use voices or anything like that. But if you want to, have at it, go for it. Go ham, lose yourself in the moment. Um, I would say as well, if you're ignorant about the rules and the world and the system, make that part of your character. Make it so that they're forgetful. Make it so that they are maybe a little dumb, or they have lost their memory, or they're just incredibly young and naive. And that is a great way to be able to approach your very first character if you don't know what you're doing and you want to have that be part of how you're presenting yourself at the table. I've had friends that were turned off of D&D very early on because other players were a little too hard on them with
Mm.
expectations. One of my buddies came to the table with a ranger, and another one of the players was like, "You're a ranger, you can do this and this and this," and it unfortunately it killed the experience.
Darn.
So that was bad. So don't. So another lesson for the players that do know what you're doing and you've got a new player at the table, don't do that.
Don't
Don't
do that.
Don't
Just
overwhelm.
don't
don't do
don't
that.
say you're supposed to know how to do this. Don't do that. Yeah. Help them. Help them. It's a collaborative process.
I like that. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think of some other fun questions that we can run with this because I like where the direction we're going with this, and I just got to come up with something else fun. Um, so, what was your first character?
His name was Thulk, the Incredible Thulk. And he was a Goliath barbarian before it was cool to be a Goliath barbarian, and he was a lot of fun to play. I played him as stupid because you gotta.
You
Uh,
got
um, and I just had a lot of fun with him. He he's still one of my favorite characters that I've ever played. Brought him back from the dead once, and reintroduced him into a campaign, which was a bad idea because all the characters had made major um, life decisions based on the death of this one character, and then him coming back kind of threw that all out of whack.
Oh no.
Um, yeah, it's not always good to bring back a character from the dead. But yeah, the Incredible Thulk was my first character, and I love him dearly.
Hey, we all have that one character that we brought that it's our heart of hearts when it comes to that
Yes.
character. Um, I'm gonna ask
Well,
Chuck a question real fast. Then,
oh me, oh
yeah,
shit.
your first character.
Oh God. I probably have them saved up somewhere. He was half orc. Um, blood hunter.
Wow,
Dervin.
that's a newer character.
Well, okay, because you've never asked. My
I
first D
haven't
and D
asked. You're
experience.
right.
Yeah, my first D&D experience was probably a decade ago
Okay.
at a comic shop. Like I'd watched Critical Role and I grew up in the South, Southern Baptist, the Satanic Panic that you mentioned, Brandon. D&D was not in my house. It was not in my house. Um, but got to move beyond on my own, whatever. Found Critical Role and eventually found a comic shop that was hosting weekly adventure leagues and popped in there one night really and just found a table and just joined the table and there we go. I think I've joined it when they were finishing what was it, the Storm Giants, that campaign like that eventually was running.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know what I'm talking about.
I know the one.
Yeah, they were finishing that up when I joined, and then they started Tales of the Yawning Portal because that had just come out, and yeah, I brought him in there. That's actually where I got one of my D20s. The DM gave me that as like a parting gift because I had to move, and that was really kind of nice. Even though the kid was like 15 years old, he's like, "Here, have my D20. This is one of my favorites. Here's to you." I'm like, "Oh, thanks. I'm never getting rid of that one."
Yeah, but
That's great. This
that's a
is also the
moment
same
that
table that called me old man for being like 25. This is
I
so
know that
bad. It's
feeling.
bad.
So don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Um,
So
there is something with the wisdom of characters, though. Like older people coming to your table, there's something about it that just makes it that much better. So, um,
I do have the option to come back with that character at any time though, because he got dragged through a portal while we were fighting a black dragon.
well,
So,
he can come back whenever he
woo.
wants. Then, but that's awesome. Um, what was your first campaign then, Brandon?
First campaign was a homebrew setting. My friend Jeff had organized it, and he's really the one that talked me into playing D&D for the first time. Because I just trusted him up and down, still do. And I thought, oh, if D&D is good for him, it's good for me. Um, but yeah, it was a homebrew setting. We were uh, there's a black dragon, and I don't remember their name, but they moved almost like black mist through a forest. It was really cool.
Ooh.
Um, but that's where I was playing as Thulk. And I also had my first experience of what happens when you put a portable hole inside a bag of holding. And good times.
Good times, yeah. Those are
Yeah.
those moments that you don't realize until you're like, oh, that's not that's not safe. Don't do
Yeah,
that.
probably shouldn't have done
Probably
that.
shouldn't have done that. Those are good. Those are those normal those memories that I think every dungeon or Dungeons and Dragons game finds itself on occasion. That it's just fun to hear those moments. Putting a
Yeah.
bag of holding inside itself, or you know, flipping open a bag of holding and making your dungeon master try to figure out everything that's ever been put in this darn thing.
That's evil.
Yeah,
That's worse than asking who what everybody's name is.
that's a
So,
question. Um, so there's a good question for you. How do you come up with names? Because I am horrible at them.
oh, I'm horrible too. I'll usually just buy a little bit of time and try to think of something that's not Steve. Uh, so
Yep. Bob is always a character, so
Yep.
um,
It doesn't hurt to have some stuff behind your screen too, like just a collection of names for races, and then go from there. Or species, I guess they're officially called now.
yes, I
So
think
yes.
so. But we play 2014 edition as well, so we still call them races.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel better. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Um, or if you're
So,
playing other systems, they call them heritages. So there's that too.
okay.
So whichever
So
you
for you,
prefer.
I don't know how you started. Uh, when did you begin playing D&D?
Oh, I so similar to you. I started when I was 8 years old with an online role playing game called Neopets, and that was when I
Oh
started
yeah.
doing collaborative writing in the guilds. My first collaborative writing piece was done in the world of the Dragon Riders of Pern from Anne McCaffrey, and I still remember my dragon that I was gifted and my character at the time, which is crazy because I was 8 years old and I don't remember pretty much anything else other than that. So at that age,
What you
but
call a core memory.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So my first character, Dakin, who was I named my dog after, and I have all sorts of other characters that I've named him after, or ran him with, and then after that, I didn't start until high school, and I was a sophomore or junior in high school when I got to play my first actual game of Dungeons and Dragons, um, and that was at a college campus with people that the next oldest person was 25 years old. So it was me walking in at like 15, and there were 12 or 11 people, at least 11 people at the table at that time. It was crazy. That was my first
Wow.
experience ever, and I was like, this is a lot. like,
Yeah.
um,
Combat would last 3 weeks.
you would think so, but I don't remember combat lasting that long. Like our game master was at that time when I was in my teens, he was probably in his like 60s. And when I'm talking about he wheeled a game table around with him pretty much, like two full suitcases full of index cards and papers and maps, and it was crazy. Uh, I wish I could meet him if he was still alive and shake his hand, but I have no idea where he went after that, after college, after I left my hometown. But yeah, that was my first experience with Dungeons and Dragons. So
Nice.
yeah, it was a lot of fun,
Nice.
and I had a paladin.
Well, Brandon, so here's one that I've been tending to ask. What has been your highest high and your lowest low?
Wow. You're both really good at this because you're asking all these great questions. Oh man, lowest low would involve spoilers for Into the Mist.
Okay, without going
Without
into spoilers, what's
without
your
going
lowest
into
low?
spoilers.
I, oh man,
What's your second lowest low? How's that?
Oh,
Did we lose him?
that's
Oh.
tough because if uh, you know what, let's do highest high.
we'll
Okay.
start
Um,
with that. That works.
I think, yeah, let's do highest high while I'm thinking of a second lowest low. So, um, highest high, I think when I was playing Snow in Tides of Wildmount, there was a part in the story, and if you haven't seen it, you can plug your ears or something for spoilers. I'm gonna have to get into spoiler territory regardless. So,
Mind you, this season has been like 2, 3 years ago. So if you haven't
e-
caught up at this point, then
exactly.
sorry.
Same goes for Into the Mist then as well.
Yeah,
Then I'll just go to the full spoilers for both.
sounds good.
So highest high, getting to RP Snow being who is a blind tabaxi, um, um, oh shoot, what's he called?
Echo Knight.
Echo Knight. That's right. For some reason I was thinking Shadow something. Uh, but yeah, blind tabaxi Echo Knight. sometimes his echoes would be able to see. And he gets to the level finally where he would be able to see through the eyes of his echo. And when he finally gets an echo that can see, it was all based on die rolls. And it's about this moment where he, for the very first time, sees color, sees light, sees dark, sees beauty and ugliness all together. And in this one fantastic moment that I had the privilege and the honor of being able to RP and be able to do it on a stream. So for me, I think
So good.
that's
It looks
highest
so
high.
good.
That's good.
And lowest low is again spoilers for Into the Mist, but um, when Sterling the boy was lost in the Amber Temple, and essentially, yeah. Are you all caught up
I am caught
or
up. Yeah.
okay, so you know the moment I'm talking about
Yes.
where he basically dies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was unexpected and it was emotionally very hard because as soon as I rolled up Sterling, I knew if anything bad happens to him, it's gonna hit me. I'm gonna mourn this character
Yeah.
if he ever dies, and that's very much a part of what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How did now that's this? I wasn't sure if we wanted to bring this up because, like I said, with the spoilers thing. But now that we're diving into that game, I can talk a little bit more on this end because I'm curious on this. How did you come up with the amalgamation then?
Oh, that was really fun. So I thought about Warforged as they're basically robots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, for lack of a better word. And so I thought, like, how cool would it be if there was some group of people that were collecting the consciousnesses of dead Warforged and amalgamating them all into one amazing Warforged. So you've got the memories and the emotions and everything that you would want. The skills and everything from these great Warforged leaders and soldiers, and what if you could put them all into one to try and make the best Warforged there is? And then what if somebody found out you were doing this and decided to add in a few that you wouldn't want involved? Like Shog, who is very evil,
Terrifying.
chaotic evil, in fact. And and so the amalgam was very much based on those thoughts, and then it led to what if this amalgamated Warforged ended up in a different realm, you know?
Mm,
And then, that merged into another idea I had about this sick boy on his deathbed, and his father gives his life to be able to save his son's life by putting his soul essentially into a Warforged. As an antiquities dealer, he had access to a Warforged, and he had access to a an essentially a user's manual without that title, um, giving him the knowledge and the ability to be able to perform this kind of feat.
right.
And that's how Sterling came about. So the boy's name was Sterling Argento. Uh, Gets put into this Warforged that already has all of these personalities but never had a soul. And now
Oh no.
you've got
Hold on. He'll
this
reboot. I promise.
this being bedridden.
Okay,
Oh,
you're back.
I'm back.
Yeah, it
Okay,
was
I'm
just
sorry.
chopping for a second.
Must be okay. So now you've got this child that's known nothing but being bedridden and ill and weak, and now he's uh, a war machine. What happens then? Right? He only knows heroes from the stories, so he's got this very idyllic view of what a hero is, and that's what he feels he needs to do in this body make his father proud, and then he gets sucked into the mists of Barovia. So that was, uh, to me, a really interesting situation to put a character in, especially someone so young and idyllic in such a dark place.
Hmm.
So that's it was a really fun experience making that character, and playing that character has been fantastic as well.
Yeah, I immediately navigated to Sterling when I started watching the show because of that reason. Because it was such a unique concept, and I was always curious, and it's something I'd been wanting to ask you for a while, which is when did you start? Was the amalgam part of the original concept, or is that something that kind of you started creating as you were through the seasons?
I think the amalgam was there in a way at the beginning. Like I think I'd already considered um, something about it, but it actually, worked its way into being an official part of the character later on.
Okay.
So very shortly before season 2 or 3, I think, when the amalgam is first introduced as, something. I always knew that there was a consciousness in there already. With Sterling, there
Mm,
was already a consciousness in there. Um, but I wasn't completely sold on it being multiple.
Mhm.
I like that. No, um, I had something in my and I just listened to the story and it whoop right back out the door. Um,
That's okay.
I think what I was gonna say is that this kind of shares a good opportunity for other players listening that you don't have to have the whole story written at the beginning. You know, you can have a concept, you can have kind of your where your character's starting, but those backstories can really quickly start to grow as you're starting to play the character and feeling that character out, um, which I know mine have done many a times, and I'm sure both of yours have as well. And it's such a unique experience that you who are the creator of that character aren't fully sure who that character is going to become because you're giving the opportunity for other people to bleed into that character as well just because of the collaborative storytelling in general, which is pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
It can be a very raw experience, just putting a character on the table and letting the world and other players have an impact on that
Mhm.
character.
Yeah.
This idea that you love so much, and then, for all you know, it's going to evolve into something that you never even considered.
Yeah. Uh, so you have this really, really deep lord character in Sterling, and then you have Snow, who has kind of a little bit has a different type of uniqueness to it because you had to learn. And I remember watching the streams where you had your eyes closed half the time, which was great because it's like you actually had to experience that thought process in your head of like, what am I really thinking about? How was that experience where you were playing a blind character um, in comparison to just playing a normal character?
I was actually a little worried because I had created the character and I was going to bring him to the table, and we'd already announced the character in a pre-season sit-down chat. And Ginny D had posted on Twitter about, like, what if I made a blind character that, like, and I had a sensitivity coach and all of these things, and then people talked her out of it. And I was so nervous because I'm like, well, now I'm bringing a blind character. It's kind of too late, just run with it. Um, so I was nervous about that. But I put a lot of thought into, this isn't just a blind, this isn't like a blind human, this is a blind tabaxi. Cats do have heightened
Mm-hmm.
senses compared to us, and how do I factor that in? If he's lost his sight and his senses would be heightened because he's lost one sense, but he's already got heightened senses compared to humans. How do I work that in for him to be able to take part in combat? Um, so he's got these patches of fur that he's shaved down to bare to be able to feel the movement of air. He's got bare feet to be able to feel vibration in the ground, like Toph, which was the original inspiration for the
Mhm.
character. Um, and there's I thought about like I did a bunch of research on how blind people differentiate spices in the kitchen, how they, how does a blind person cook for themselves if they don't, live with anybody, if they're just, if they're on their
Hmm.
own. Um, and and Reddit was really helpful there. There's some great subreddits for where you can ask questions and get some genuine, very good answers. So that was really helpful, and that's also what led to him being a cook, like on the pirate ship, because people would look down at him and they didn't see his other skills,
Right.
but he was okay with that. He'd let them think that because he knew that if it hit the fan, he'd be able to represent. He'd be able to be there. He'd be able to handle his own, which he was able to do in a stream with Matt Mercer and Matt Lillard and B Dave and
Yeah, there's some intense players on that stream. That was good.
Joey. Yeah, it was getting to play him for the first time with that group was intense. So it wasn't just the nervousness of coming to the table with a blind character and not knowing what the public perception would be. It was also coming to the table with this character and then having all of these big names at the table at the same time.
Yeah, because that was the one where you guys played with Lillard, Mercer, Crawford. I can't remember some of the other ones, but yeah.
Yeah, Joey Haig, B Dave, uh, and that was most of the table there. Joel was a part of that
Hmm.
too. Joel Auger, he was there, and of course Jay was DMing.
Yeah.
Uh, um, that was an amazing experience, and I feel like I embarrassed myself multiple times when the stream was not on air. Just trying to start up conversations with Matt Mercer. So he was talking about like Animal Crossing because it was this was right after it launched. And so he was playing it a lot, and so he was talking a lot about that, and I hadn't played it. So,
I can't connect to this right now. Like he's
yeah,
engulfed in this game. Uh,
That damn Tom Nook.
yeah.
yeah. How dare he, run a bank essentially for mortgages?
um, Chuck, if you don't see it, his character art for Snow is right above his head.
I can see it.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
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 that's fan art. I'm very humbled to
yeah.
get to have that.
That's awesome. The the artwork alone for uh, Wild Mount was incredible. Like all the characters were really well designed and everything. It was such a cool experience. Um, but what as we're starting to get closer to the end of the interview, and I know it's sad that my curiosity is what's next. You've done all these things. You've been able to run streams with people like Matt Mercer, with Jason as your GM. Um, what's the next step? Like, how do you go above and beyond that for you?
Well, I'm I'm trying to get a couple of TTRPGs off the ground. Hopefully, people will love them. I'm especially attached to the Deep right now
Okay.
because to me it's very much my baby, whereas Avoid All Land is very much Rob's baby. So
So
we were working on them together,
you
but
took the the drive for this one, where he was more of the driving factor for the other one.
exactly, yeah. So we are checking each other's work, working on this stuff,
That's
and
awesome.
getting to co-design these projects. which is great because you come up with this template that you can use to be able to design other RPGs in the future. Uh, it it was a really fun experience. I think for me, that's a big part of what I want to see grow in the future. I'd love
Nice.
to see people playing the deep and having some experiences with it. Um, Realmsmith just fully funded the season 6 of Into the Mist, the final season.
Final season.
So I'm going to be doing that. And aside from that, I think, um, yeah, I can announce it here. I'm working on a show with David Morin, Adam Maines, and David Shaheen. We are still working out a name for it, but it might be called The Last Light, and it's a very dark fantasy homebrew world, where it's very much a world that's been abandoned by the gods, except for a very precious few. Uh, and there are some twists and turns that are going to come their way, and they have no idea.
Ooh, I'm
You
down
heard it here
for it.
first, folks.
You heard it here first. No,
Yep, you heard it here first.
sounds like a lot of fun. And it's going to be played in 5e, or is it going to be in your system?
5e.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
nice.
Oh, that's another thing about the deep that I didn't mention. It can be adapted to pretty much any kind of world or setting you want. So it could be feudal Japan, it could be modern day, it could be a cyberpunk future. The whole idea is that it's an alternate world
Ooh,
that's a dark version of the current world that you're in. And you can
How
have a
do,
lot of fun with that running a game, right? As if you're GMing. So,
how
yeah,
do you get darker than cyberpunk at times?
well,
Man, oof.
I
that's a good
mean,
question.
I work with I've worked with Chaosium, and I've seen what their darkness is, so I can
Yeah.
definitely say it gets darker. Um,
Yeah.
so tonight we're going to try something new. This is something that I started doing last episode, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. Unless the audience has any other questions that they'd like to drop into the chat, we're going to have you roll a d4. I've got 4 questions that were not requested from here, and we're going to see which one comes up tonight. So,
Okay.
all right,
All
let's see
right.
what you
So
get.
got my D4. 4.
4. This is a good one, especially to end the night. Are there any homebrew rules that you utilize that you would recommend for others?
Yeah. Dungeon Dudes do this really cool, like critical hit sort of rule where you take the whole damage of your crit, like of what you would get if you rolled max on your crit,
Mm-hmm.
and then you add your rolled damage to that.
That's what I do. I love that.
And
It's so much more
it's
fun.
so much more fun because the enemies get to do that too.
So, yeah, about that. uh, so that works wonders until you crit on like the worst ability that the enemy has, and
Yeah,
you auto shot somebody, and that's not fun. My players were
that's true.
pissed. Uh,
That's true.
now, mind
Yeah.
you, I will say they were upset. However, it is the only artwork that I've ever been presented. So I will say it had to have done something well. Just gonna say that. So
Well, there you go.
yeah, we
Proof is in the pudding.
right. Um, I guess I'll tell this quick story then, since otherwise this makes no sense of what I'm saying. It was my first campaign after I'd gotten back from my deployment with a bunch of friends, and one of our players was playing a divine sorceress. And for those that know, healing characters normally have armor because it's clerics or druids or something of that perspective. She's a sorcerer, so she didn't have any armor whatsoever, and she tried to go in for a coup de grace with a inflict wounds at 4th level against a bone devil, and she critted at 216 points. This creature had 250 total, and as a response, because she critted um, she made the highest amount of damage. I turned around and spine attacked her, which also critted back to back with it, and yeah, she was already down like 3/4 of her health. So when it critted for something like 122 damage or something like that, yeah, it literally skewered her, and our barbarian carried her out in his hands. And I got a picture of that where the Torin or the um, it's not the shoot, I don't even know what he was playing at the time. I think it was a Furbolg. Furbolg barbarian carried out this little divine sorcerer, and she's got this giant hole in her chest. And I was like, I was shocked that I even got the presentation for this thing, but I was like, this is the one artwork that my friends actually commissioned to get done because of the moment that happened. This was my oldest son's first campaign too, so it was a pretty crazy night for that one.
That's a great
Yeah,
story.
it was a lot of fun.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to to top that campaign. It was so good because it was so collaborative, and then it was my first full homebrew. I had started wrote from the beginning, and yeah, it ended with my son. They had just battled an avatar of Yanagu. They were about to lose, and my son was playing a Hexblade Warlock, and his patron told him, if you want to survive, throw the blade into the portal, and I will save you. And as I did, he threw the Hexblade into the portal, reversed the polarity of the portal, pulled everybody into Avernus, and I cut it for 6 months because three of my friends were deploying, and we've never returned to that campaign. So that's where that campaign ended, was sitting in Avernus.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, and that campaign was 2019, 2018. So yeah, it's been a while since we
Oof.
picked that one up. So,
Yeah. But
but
it's ripe for a return.
it might be. Who knows? One day.
Yeah.
Got to get that friend group back together though. So,
Yeah.
Chuck, you got any last questions for Brandon?
No, I don't right now. This has been a great conversation, though.
It has.
Thank
Um,
you. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
oh, absolutely. One of the things we love doing here is bringing new guests on and learning about their experiences in the TTRPG world because
Mhm.
we all have unique ones, and our job is to highlight them here at the tavern. So, and I feel like 146 episodes, I've done a decent job. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
It's not a great job, but I've done a decent job. Um, and we look forward to every one of our guests that come because they all bring something new. And yeah. Any last things you would like to ask? Questions? Give an insight for upcoming things that you want to shout out real fast, or we can close it down.
I've shouted out everything and plugged everything, but I feel like I've been answering a lot of questions, and I want to know from both of you, what's your favorite class and species combo?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mechanically or just in general?
In general, just like for fun storytelling and character creation. It doesn't have to be min-maxed. It just, what's your favorite? What screams at you right now? First thing that comes to mind.
Oh, first thing that comes to mind is it's my baby. That's a dwarf fighter, straight up. It's simple, but it's so much fun. Um, yeah, I've had multiple characters that I've played as dwarf fighters, and they've been one of the most fun I've played just because they're simple, but they have so much uniqueness to them or concepts to them. What about you, Chuck?
I think I'm gonna have to go back to Durban, my half orc blood hunter. He was a Lycan. He was Order of the Lycan too. So
Ooh,
yeah, so it's pretty nice. It was pretty
yeah.
fun.
I
That's
played.
great.
Blood hunters are. I have a heart for them as well. I have a NPC that is. If anybody's ever seen the Blacklist, Red Reddington, I have an NPC who is a tiefling blood hunter that literally manipulated the entirety of four different campaigns that I've ran in the just underground messing with players. And for some reason, some of my players realized that he kept popping up even in other campaigns and other stories, and they're like, does he know everything? I was like, maybe. And he would just randomly show up with a new quest that he needed done, and all of a sudden they'd be like, well, that helped us here, but something changed over here that we didn't realize was going to happen. I was like, that's the point of the character. He's just manipulating everything. But yeah, that's my other fun character. So yeah, blood hunters are so much fun, and they're so unique because every one of them has a very unique adjustment to them, between Lycan or Profane Soul, Alchemist, I think is another one. There's a bunch of neat ones. Or Mutagen one. It's like they get to do mutants and stuff. It's kind of neat. Okay, then we're gonna spin this around. So, what's your favorite class species?
You know what? I really loved Snow, and he was so fun to play in combat because Echo Knights, man. Like you know what? Like even the RP potential of an Echo Knight, just being able to say like tap once for yes and twice for no, and then talking to them about this other world that you just rip them from, like having somebody to play checkers with,
You're never bored.
that
It's
no matter
great.
where you go, you've got a friend. You're never
Absolutely.
alone. You're an Echo Knight.
Mm.
So that's yeah, that's a lot of fun. And I'm like pretty much a fighter for life. Like I always roll up fighters. Um, just they are simple, yes, but there's a lot of creativity that you can put into making them more complex and making them have more utility in the battlefield.
I didn't
So
realize that both of your
that's
characters
what
are
I would say.
fighters off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Yeah, because Sterling's a rune knight, and
yeah, they are. I keep flirting with barbarian, but I haven't gone back to barbarian yet. It's always been fighters. Yeah.
yeah, no, I love fighters, and they always have. I like the ones that they give you some sort of tweak to them. Like champion's cool and all, and
Yes.
if that's what you're going to run with, go for it. It's a very easy one to start off for a new player. Um, but like Battle Master, Rune Knight, Echo Knight, Eldritch Knight, all of them so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm intimidated by Battlemaster. There's just so many options in there, what you could do.
So much.
Yeah.
It's the sorcerer of fighters. It's like how many different
Yes.
abilities do I have to deal with? But yeah,
Yes. Although I did play a sorcerer once. Uh, yeah. Arashi Viento. He was my character in the campaign that became the very first live stream campaign that Jay ever did.
is that the shattered something? My brain's not working. Oh, and he froze, so we can't answer that question.
So
Oh, no.
that was Sentinels of the Storm.
Oh, okay, nice.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
you're
back
back.
now.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
all right. Yeah, it was Sentinels of the Storm. That's what
Okay,
it was
cool.
called. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, it's been a blast. This was such a good
Mhm.
conversation. We've got a bunch of some good advice, some new plugs because I'm always looking for new TTRPGs to get my hands on. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
lately this year has been bad. I've bought so many,
You've gotten
so
the
many
bug for so
different
many now.
books. But yeah, I might have to just this is this crazy thing to think about, but I might have to as a once a month thing just pick up a TTRPG, contact some guests, and be like, "Let's play." I don't know how we're gonna play it, but let's try it, and just go
Yeah,
for
go
it as
for
a
it.
one shot. Because I have way too many. I think I'm at least at a dozen that I haven't played yet, so I gotta get moving. So, but once again, thanks for coming on. Real quick, I'm going to do a quick shout out to our sponsors for the evening. Um, if you're listening, you can hear the amazing music in the background. That's all coming from our wonderful sponsor this year of Monument Studios. They just finished uh, their launch, and I think all of the bugs are finally pushed out because they didn't expect such an amazing turnaround. And so be prepared as more audio is going to be released here soon. Our
Not only
dice
that, but they've got their desktop app coming out this month and
desktop,
a mobile app coming out.
absolutely. Um, our dice sponsor this year is Canadian Dice. Use 15% off by using Misfit15 over at CanadianDice.ca. And if you're looking for apparel for both myself and Beaker, go check out DungeonGrandmaster.com. He's our official sponsor for all of our apparel. We'll also be launching here soon Dress to Quest t-shirts and mugs. So it's fun. Support us, support the show any way you can. Best way to do it, of course, is the free ways. Like, share, comment on all the social medias, and come in, hang out with the guests. Every week we get a new guest, and of course, tomorrow, Beaker. What are you doing tomorrow, Beaker?
The Banshee.
The Banshee. That's right.
Struggling with the Banshee.
Yeah, another master grade Gunpla that Beaker's building on stream. Come hang out with him, and we will.
Watch me get frustrated again
Yeah.
for 20 minutes on one fucking piece.
But yeah, this is last call. Raise your glasses high. This is Tavern Talks, and we'll see you guys all next week. Stick around as we raid our some friends.